Welcome to the third episode of Don't Feed After Midnight. I'm Steve.
And I'm Mike.
And we're going to talk about some Battlefield 1942. Alright, so I played Battlefield 1942 literally when it came out in 2002. And I didn't stop playing that. I mean, I played it daily, if not weekly. Battlefield weekly. Until probably 2010. I mean, I would still pop it in from time to time, but after my daughter was born, I didn't really go on a game for 4 or 5 hours a night anymore.
Right.
But, I mean, graphically, it was, at the time, it was really, really good. The gameplay was very sloppy.
Yeah.
You could, shoot somebody in the face with a bazooka and they might lose half their health, I mean, I can remember shooting a plane, taking off with a tank, and the plane still taking off, and only doing 2 or 3 bars of damage because the hit detection was weird, but...
Right.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, and you played recently on PlayStation 4, Battlefield 1.
Yeah.
And graphically, that was amazing.
It's evolved, that's for sure.
But I don't know how laddering and stuff would go. I don't know if do you know of anybody that ladders in that game? I mean, because it's a console game, not...
Well, what do you mean?
Well, they have it for PC too, though, don't they?
Yeah, it's all across all platform.
It's probably laddering in that still. I don't know.
Well, what do you mean by laddering?
Oh, laddering. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Laddering, I played with a group of guys, 9th Infantry, and we had a TeamSpeak server, and we had our own, Battlefield server, whatever.
Okay, so you had your own little clan.
Yeah, clan basically, and there was probably 150, 200 clans at that point in time, and we would.
Now there's 152,000.
Yeah, right, so. Exactly. And we would ladder though, because they would have ladder matches. Like EA Games would host ladder.
Servers?
Yeah, and basically you'd go at it, and they would have observers, and whichever team won would move up a rung on the ladder, and you would ladder and ladder and ladder until you get to the top, and the team who won would win free games, or generally it was free server hosting for a year.
At this point, pretty much all tournaments or ladder based gaming is on a professional level, and it's if it's not run by the developer, it's run by a private company that just puts it on. And I know with Battlefield, I don't think this one, Battlefield 1, dove into esports that way, but it's not. I mean, the esports just wasn't in their promotion for the game. It wasn't something they were pushing for it. I mean, they had live events where they had the YouTubers that make the games popular through communities. Yeah. They had I think they had Snoop Dogg and a few other famous people come out and play it live as a demonstration. And but the major tournaments with the hardcore gamers are all it's all events that happen and they're put up on Twitch or YouTube. And
the Twitch is cool.
It's always a cash prize with them.
Continue Show guys, and actually Jeff Pennington from M-Class does that too. They go on Twitch and they live stream, and that's absolutely amazing to me. Being able, to live stream what you're doing is such a cool thing. And
I do it.
We used to when we would game. Sometimes people would record their games with Fraps. Fraps was but it was only on your computer. You would record your screen basically. It was just a screen grabbing.
Now it's open source. And a few other.
And that's
programs.
Amazing though. I like watching Josh and the guys from Continue Show do that. I'll do it. I'll put it on sometimes while we're driving in the truck. I won't watch it.
Yeah.
While we're driving, but I'll put it on in the background because it's fun to listen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they're playing a game Ocarina of Time or something like that, where you know what the game is.
Right.
And when he's describing what he's doing, which it's cool.
Well, Twitch is awesome. I mean, when I first found out about Twitch, I literally looked at the catalog of games that were being streamed. And I'm expecting maybe the recent games came out in the past few months. Mm-hmm. And then I start looking and I'm seeing all these classic games that came out 20 years ago. And I'm like, holy shit, these guys are still playing it seriously.
Some guy was streaming Diablo the other day and I was really surprised.
It's crazy.
EverQuest.
The things you see people playing. I mean,
it's pretty cool. I could see live streaming Battlefield. We're trying to get a group of guys back together to play it again. They released it on Origin, and some guy, it's considered abandonware now.
Yeah.
So, somebody like actually released there's a website where you can download it for free and just game for free. And
Yeah.
there's a few servers out there. There's only about 40 servers out there. When I started, there was over 1,000.
Yeah.
But it overall, like the game has really not changed for me as far as like the fun factor, and it's very sloppy.
Yeah.
But
Very.
it's a lot of fun. I mean, there were a lot of mods for that game. One of the more interesting things, like Desert Combat, came out as a mod. That was kind of sweet. But this mod came out, this Vietnam mod called Forgotten Hope, and the Forgotten Hope modders were so good at what they did, and the product that they produced was amazing. And these guys did it for free; they weren't making money off of it.
Right.
But it was so
basically
good that EA Games scooped up a bunch of them, and they made an actual Battlefield Vietnam mod, which was a very successful game in its own right. It was a standalone game, and people would ladder in that game.
They didn't, because they made Battlefield Vietnam, and then like way later down the road, they did, like way later. I'm saying like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, maybe. Well, shit, by now it's like 9 years ago. Bad Company 2 came out.
Yeah, I remember seeing the ads for that.
And they had a DLC that was Vietnam.
Oh, that's cool.
And it brought in a lot of that old shit.
Yeah, so Battlefield Vietnam was cool. We jump in one of the jets, and it would start playing the bird song, from Family Guy. Bird. Yeah, and I thought that was kind of fun. At that time, you didn't. If you wanted to hear music while you played, you either had to have your media player running in the background, or you had to have just literally your stereo going.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. Let's say overall, Battlefield and EverQuest are my two favorite games. EverQuest, I'm talking vanilla EQ.
Yeah.
From like 99. Like, used to play it on the dial-up modem. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the Battlefield, the specs to run that game are so low. Like they're so low. I mean, 128 megs of RAM and like an 8 meg video card, and you can play that damn game. You probably even have to have an 8 megabyte video card. You could probably get away with like a 4.
I don't even want to think about the requirements to play Battlefield 1 on a PC. That just sounds like $1,000.
That's pretty. Yeah, no kidding.
Seriously.
At least to play it like nice. Like when America's Army came out, that when the U.S. Army released, we used to ladder in that game too, and that game had pretty decent requirements as far as gameplay. Because if you stuttered, it was all online. There was very few instances where you'd be by yourself, playing America's Army. I think I'm not sure if there was a single player mode or not. I think there was, but it just wasn't fun. It's more fun to play against people. But laddering in Battlefield was always slightly frustrating because of the sloppy game mechanics. You could literally, like you showed me a video the other day, that guy stalling his jet, jumping out of the jet, killing a bunch of guys on a tower, and as the jet slowly floated down, jumping back in it, turning it on, and flying away.
Ridiculous.
Well, then in Battlefield, you only had World War II era planes and stuff like that, but there were guys that would do that. They would jump out of their plane, they would send their plane straight up in the air, they'd jump out of their plane, hit their parachute, shoot a bunch of guys, or drop a bunch of C4 or something like that, set it off, blow up a base, and as the plane came down, they'd jump back in it again and take off. And it was wild.
I've seen videos that are even crazier where it's like you got a guy coming in with a F-16, and you got another guy in the enemy team coming through with his jet, and this guy will eject, pull out his. There
you go. There it goes.
Okay. Yeah, he'd pull out his sniper, and like after he ejects. And he'd literally scope in to the jet that's coming at him at a good 200 miles an hour.
Snipe
the pilot out. And while the thing's slowing down to get him, he'll pull the chute and land in that guy's jet.
That's amazing.
But the awesome thing about it is his jet would crash, blow up. The other team wouldn't have another jet to use, but this team's got an extra one now.
That's actually smart. That's true.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we used to go and steal their aircraft carriers in Battlefield. There's a couple of games
awesome.
like Iwo Jima and Wake Island. One of them had the Japanese had an aircraft carrier, and the U.S. had an aircraft carrier. And we'd parachute onto their deck. But that was a certain game mode. Like, you couldn't usually steal the enemy stuff so much. Like, sometimes they just wouldn't let you do it.
They brought that back.
Oh, did they really?
Well, not the stealing of it, but they brought the controlling a massive ship back in Battlefield 1.
It's fun. Because especially in ladder matches, the enemy knew where your aircraft carrier spawned in at.
Yeah.
So you'd want to take it to the edge of the map and hide it. You know, the only problem with that, of course, is if somebody got in a boat. Like, the only way off that thing was by plane. If you got in a boat, it would take you forever in those little tiny little PT boats to zoop back to the main base. But some of those maps, I mean, it would take forever. You know, or you'd wind up with, like, you'd be the last guy alive. The enemy would have all the flags, you know, and you'd be like, you know, you try to, like, the best thing in the world is when you were the last guy, or there was one guy left, and he made it to some random flag way in the distance, took the flag, and everybody else was able to spawn in again, and then your team came back and won it. Like, you felt so amazing when that happened. You know, very rare, though, that happened. Sometimes you'd have some lone sniper out there in the middle of nowhere, and all the flags would be capped. Everyone would die, and this tool would just sit there, not try to cap a flag, and just hide. And the other team would be frantically searching for him, because you're just wasting time at that point. You'd have a bunch of people going, suicide, just kill yourself.
I seriously love that, though.
I know Cool, and Cool's teaming up with a good balanced breakfast.
Teaming up with Mr. T cereal. It's getting on the team that knows how cool breakfast can be. You get a crispy corn taste with a touch of brown sugar. Teaming up with Mr. T.
It's Cool.
Teaming up with Mr. T. Golden sweet crispy teas. One bite and you're gonna be eating with a team that's teaming up with Mr. T.
It's Cool.
Teaming up with Mr. T.
Like, that's one of my favorite things to do in the game is, you know, or at least playing other Battlefields, like getting to a flag and then finding the perfect spot that they won't find you.
Yeah.
And then just laying there and waiting. Anybody that comes past, mow them down.
I used to love sniping like they do. Battlefield was funny, though, because your ammo, especially with sniping, was really limited.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why you need a squad.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you get the guys, I need more ammo, whatever.
Yep.
But I don't even remember if you could drop ammo. I don't know if you could drop ammo as any of the characters in the original Battlefield. I remember I had a buddy who would come up, and like he would be a sniper too, and he would just, if I was running low on ammo, he would take a plane, parachute onto me, and then suicide. And I would just pick up his kit, so I'd have a full kit.
Right.
Yeah, that was a really big waste of a plane, though. You don't want to use plane taxis. You know, that was always the worst. But some of the boards in Battlefield were expansive. Like Gazala was a map where it was just humongous. So if you didn't have more than like 10 people playing, it was pointless to play that map. You know, and some of them though were really tiny. Like Berlin was a map with like no vehicles.
You could have like 5 people and then feel.
Oh, it was great because you're going in amongst buildings and there's ruins. There's rubble everywhere, and you're going down city streets. The thing with Berlin is that like the Russians had a flag that you could not cap. It was permanent. You couldn't take that flag. But the Germans didn't. All their flags were captured.
Oh my gosh.
So, like, you know, you all of a sudden you get frantic. You'd have like, you know, 3 Germans left, and you'd have no flag. So you'd all split up and race trying to cap a flag. You know, it was fun though. But you know, in that game there were issues. You'd have people with nade spam, where they sit there with grenades by an ammo box and just throw grenades, you know, into the enemy bunker or whatever. And you would spawn and die, and it wasn't fun. So, you know, you had to make up kind of your own rules, you know, where, you know, there was no
doing this, no doing that.
No attacking, you know, a main base that was non-cappable. It was pointless, you know. But people will still do it. You know.
Yeah.
Nowadays, in some of the servers, they have they changed it so that if you go near the enemy base, you start to die.
Oh, it just takes your health away.
Yeah, but if you get past a certain point on the baseline or the area of the base, which is kind of cool.
They do that in modern games, I think.
Because otherwise, you would have people doing it. They take a tank and sit there in front of the spawn and just shoot anybody that appears.
Yeah, because in Battlefield, you'll have both teams have their own spawn, but it's not a flag. It doesn't count as a point towards actually getting.
Oh, Battlefield 1 for PlayStation. Oh,
they don't count it as a cap point because you're always going to have it. So you got 2 cap points, and you got like anywhere between 4 and 6 actual cap points to go to. And you know, like you could have one team with all 6 cap points, and this other team's only choice of spawn is their base.
Which is fine. I kind of like that. I like having bad odds and trying to fight back against them. You know, the team balancing can be a little weird in Battlefield. If the server isn't modded with the automatic team balancing thing, sometimes you won't even realize it. Like, last night I was playing with a couple of guys, and there was 8 of us on one server, and then there was like 3 guys on the other side, and it went on like that for a half hour. But I wasn't paying attention. You know, I was in battleship. I was in a battleship, and I was like just laying waste to their airfield. And all of a sudden, one of the guys was like, "The team are a little unbalanced." And I was like, "Oh, dude, no wonder we've been kicking your butts." So I switched over. And I mean, you got to have that kind of like camaraderie though and fun. I mean, sometimes you will get servers where people are just jerks. You know, you'll have guys that, you know, like, because you'll get punished if you kill a teammate, and if you get 3 TKs, they'll kick you off the server.
Yeah.
You know, you'll have guys that'll jump right in front of your gun on purpose, or stand in front of your tank so you can't move, and when you kill them, you get punished and eventually kicked off the server. You know, that would happen a lot. But eventually those guys get caught, and, you know, if the servers run right. And that's the other thing, is like, with those older games, you have to be able to have a mod on the server, you know, when you run a seriously game. And overnight, you can't expect people to stay there 24 hours. But some of the servers, surprisingly, in Battlefield are still pretty full. And they've released them. They released a mod where you can do up to 128 people on a server, which is a slobber knocker of a match.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, 64 guys was a lot at one point, especially in a map like Berlin. You literally are wading through bodies trying to get to the enemy flags. It's pretty funny. You know, you drive a tank and you're just like, there's people flying left and right, bouncing off the hood of your thing. You know, it's fun. There's no strategy in a match like that. You're literally just going at it. You know, yeah. You know. And it is a lot of fun. But that game, you know, led into a lot of other games, I think. I don't know if that's really the first massive first-person shooter. I want to say it is. At least for me, that was the first one I ever remember playing. And I liked it. Yeah. I liked it a lot. You know, it was a choice between that game and a game called Army, which flopped. Yeah, they released it. Not Arm A, which is a totally different... Arma, yeah. Pretty cool. Arma, we talk about graphically intense. Yeah. I mean, that was crazy. But that had like to kneel down. In Battlefield, if you hit a button, you kneel down or you lay flat. You just go prone like that. You could literally jump and go flat in midair, you know, like a pancake. In Arma, you had to like hunker down. Your character would slowly kneel down, you know, and it seemed to me.
They tried to make the military simulator like on a whole other level.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of simulation was crazy.
Which is fun in a way, I suppose. But there's a point where, you know, like, I mean, if you want to play, you can jump in Battlefield and fly a plane around and bomb stuff. It's fun. If you want a flight simulator,
it's quick, fun.
Different. Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, I'm lousy in a plane on Battlefield. I will die every time. You know, I can't.
I'm not good with the old controls, but the new controls I'm like great with. It's funny.
Yeah, I don't think I've played games on PlayStation before, man, and there's auto aiming on a lot of it. I've noticed, like,
it's light.
If your crosshair gets toward a guy, it'll snap to him.
It's a soft lock. It doesn't snap to him. Yeah. It'll like. It only bugs me in certain situations. You can turn it off at any time in the menu.
Okay.
But it does help in certain situations. So it's basically what it is when you're aimed in. It does. I don't think it happens when you're hip firing, but when you're actually aimed in, if an enemy goes into that little 2-inch space of your crosshair, it'll kind of lean in towards where he's at. But where the problem comes in is if you're aiming at a guy and you're steady trying to shoot him, and then his teammate runs across the path, it'll drag to the left that inch or two as he runs, and now that other guy's got a one-up on you because you're not aiming at him anymore.
Yeah.
And that happens more than it should. But in other situations, you'll be in a crazy gunfight. The guy's running like a madman, jumping around you and trying to hit you with a shovel, and you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to shoot this dude if I were straight up fighting him because he's just moving too fast for me. So the aim assist will help there. But
in Battlefield, I had to use the mouse. Because it was a PC game originally, and using that mouse spoiled me because aiming, you could literally you could move the crosshairs really, really easily, and you got used to moving, WSAD, up, forward, left, back, and right with the keyboard, and then pointing with the mouse and just running and gunning. Whereas with the
consoles, it's
consoles,
just
I can't
two
do it.
sticks.
I can't do it. I tried some of the games for PlayStation 2 when they came out when I was younger, and I just didn't. I did not like that. Call of Duty, that series, and it's just to me, it wasn't as fluid. I mean, some guys that play those consoles, they're like, "What are you talking about? It's easy. It's so easy." Blah blah blah. But I don't know.
I think it's easier than mouse keyboard, but I do understand why people prefer mouse keyboard because it is more reactive. It is, it's proven that it's faster than running.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't really. I mean, you can't really have a mouse for a console. They tried that with the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo mouse, and that just didn't.
They're at a point now where certain games are allowing mouse keyboard controls on console.
Really?
And you plug up to the console,
like a USB plug for the mouse. Really?
And you just I mean, it's not a PlayStation mouse. It's like
generic mouse.
It's just a mouse you get, and you can plug up, and like certain games will actually have that option available.
Well, you would need that with some of the RPGs too. I mean, some of them with the click and point stuff, like Shadowgate.
Well, they really optimize a lot of those kind of games. Yeah. Like any major RPGs or MMOs, they really optimize the buttons to do the things that point click can do. So like, say you got like 50 attacks on the bottom of your screen when you're playing on the PC to point click. Like on the console, it'll be like click L1 square and you'll do this attack. Like it'll be mapped out. So
I remember games like Shadowgate though for the Nintendo. Like you could search for things on the board or whatever with a magnifying glass or whatever, but it was kind of slow and kind of clunky. Right. Whereas I kept thinking if I had a mouse, I could just go across the screen and click. I don't know. I guess it all depends on the game you're playing too. So we're gonna stop here for a little commercial break. How about something from the late 80s? How about a toy commercial? I like that. It's my favorite thing to do.
Sega challenges you with the ultimate video game, the Sega Master System.
Hang on.
With more accurate control, more detailed graphics, more levels of play.
Awesome.
The Sega Master System comes with power-based 2 control pads, light phaser, and 2 great video games. Hang on and Safari Hunt.
Gotcha.
And with other games like Rambo, Outrun, and Choplifter, the excitement never stops. The Sega Master System. The challenge will always be there.
And we're back. We just watched a comparison video of the 2 different games that we're talking about, Battlefield 1942 and then Battlefield 1. And some of it, I mean, like the flat gun and things like that, don't look that much. They don't look that different, to be quite honest. I like Battlefield 1942, though. I mean, I mean, maybe it's just because it's a nostalgia thing,
classic.
But I really enjoy the game. I think it's very sloppy and crazy, and you can just be stupid in it and still survive.
I think it's hilarious, but still a good game. Like when you're playing it, you know it's funny. You know the graphics are not top notch, but that's half the reason it's fun. Like it's goofy the way you see bodies flying around. Like I mean, it's it's that classic old PC game that's like it's at face value it's garbage, but like it plays so well and it feels so fun that you gotta love it.
There's nothing quite like launching or dropping a bomb or even throwing a grenade into a group of guys and seeing the bodies just go flying.
It's hilarious.
The ragdoll physics are pretty good, but
it still happens in Battlefield 1, so they haven't changed that much. I mean, it's
But there, that game though, there were issues with insofar as like the game mechanics. There were certain situations where you'd see a battleship. Just a massive battleship, and you would run aground, but something would happen, something would glitch, and the whole ship would just bounce up into the air, and just be flopping around on land until the health ran out of it.
That's terrible.
Oh, it was insane.
I seen that reminds me of videos I've seen in the past of like, I don't know if it still happens in Battlefield 1, but I know in Battlefield 3 and 4 that came out in like 2012 and 2014 respectively, I think. Basically, they had these glitches that people they abused.
Exploits,
but like it was different because it was situational. They would put C4 on the ground, on the beachfront, and have some little dinghy boat come riding across the water and beach. And the second they hit over the C4, the teammate would blow it up. And because there's no friendly fire in a casual server, it would launch the boat, and they would fling the boat from the beachfront all the way to like the center of the map, and it's got a mounted gun on it.
Oh,
so
that's
these guys
awesome.
would just fling a boat and just.
Yeah, there was an exploit for Battlefield Desert Storm, where it was on the El Alamein map in particular. You could do it on where you always had parachutes. Everybody has a parachute. You don't see it on your back, but you do, and you would jump. And right before you hit the ground, if the jump was high enough where your guy started to fall and would take damage, right before you hit the ground, if you hit the jump button again, you would fly up in the air, whatever direction you were going, and you would just, as long as you held that button down, you would keep accelerating upwards, and it was a constant acceleration, so you could go all the way over, across the entire map, and then hit your parachute and land on the enemy base. So people were capping flags within the first 5-10 seconds of the game, as opposed to, a good 5 minutes to get over to it or whatever.
Right.
And it was bad. I mean, all of a sudden, I remember the first time I noticed it, I was flying in a jet, and which is rare for me because I suck. And there's this guy just goes past me, and you can hear the voice because the computer will automatically play the voice for you. You'll hear that, and you're flying past. I flew past 3 guys, just going whoa, but they were flying at me. They weren't going straight down. They were coming straight across at me. And I circled back around, and I was like, "What the hell?" And they just keep going straight. Like I had trouble catching up to them because they were going so fast. I mean, they patched that exploit. And it was kind of fun to do. I mean, if you were playing with your friends, it was pretty funny.
I'd die laughing.
Oh, it was great. Because you could fly over the enemy map, or over the map to the enemy base, and if you're an engineer, drop all your dynamite, and then hit it, even before you hit the ground, all over the airfield, or you could just drop landmines as you're going.
I've used that strat before. It's a nice strat. I mean, if you have to bail out, you might as well take a few people with you. I mean,
that's what I used to do. I used to ram stuff with my plane. If I couldn't shoot, because I had trouble. Bombing was fine, but shooting and flying like straight ahead was always an issue with me. I don't know what it was. I was just really shitty at it.
I used to attempt on Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 is my absolute favorite out of all of them.
I don't think I ever played Battlefield 3.
It's so much fun. It came out in 2012.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't.
But it's no, I had this thing that I would always do if I were flying a jet, where I would always run engineer because the engineer had access to all the anti-tank stuff. So because they basically merged classes to make it, you had a medic, which was just obviously the healer. You had the support, which was the ammo guy. You had the engineer, which is the repairs and vehicle destruction. And then you had the scout, which is the snipers and the markers and all that. But the engineer, because they had access to the vehicle destruction, they got RPGs in their class.
Oh, no way.
So you'd have your little carbines and whatever and your SMGs, but you'd be able to like pull out your equipment as an RPG. So I'd take a jet, and if I was about to be shot down, I'd bail. And because it's a jet, you launch up when you bail. And I'd pull out the RPG midair and try to get somebody. And it would always end up I would always try to get it would always be a helicopter if I seen one. It would always be a jet if it was approaching me. But it was almost like a mini game of its own, me trying to like get that one good RPG while falling out the plane.
That's the one thing about Battlefield 2 with like the bazookas that they had. It was really, the game basically decided if it wanted it to count or not. You could shoot people.
Yep.
I shot guys and had the bazooka blow up at their feet, and they just kept running at me like nothing happened. Yep. And other times I've shot them, it hit at their feet, and their bodies went flying and they died.
Yep.
It also depends on the map too. I mean, I would make maps for that game, and I would spend hours making maps, and that was fun because you could put the buildings wherever you wanted to, the hills, the ammo dumps, the spawn points, whatever. I mean, you'd see arena matches where you would have like a 100-foot square cube, and everyone would spawn right in the middle of it, and it was just a mess. It was funny. There was no real place to hide except behind the piles of bodies, But so like sometimes you'd have a wall of bodies in front of you, and you're shooting over the wall, and as the bodies are slowly disappearing because the game cleans up the graphics, like you're just like, okay, And but the thing is too low, though you'd have people spamming with grenades, So you'd pop in and just like grenade. So for a while, all you'd
That's
have
so
was
ridiculous.
you'd spawn and die. There was a game on Steam that was like that too. I forget what the name of that game was, but you had a lot of grenade spamming going on with that too. And that was like, that's the biggest problem with some of those games, I think, is if the game designers don't allow for ridiculously stupid people that go in and ruin a game for others, if they don't allow you a way to kick them off, it can ruin the game. You can have somebody come on the server, and if there's no mod, he's just going to wreck that server fun for everybody because he's stealing, planes and shooting his own guys and stuff like that.
Yeah, see, like, I knew guys that would literally get in a plane, fly it out of the map, and then jump out. And then they'd swim back to shore, and then they'd run back to the airbase, grab the next plane that spawned, fly it away, and jump out. And it was annoying as hell to guys like me that wanted to, and the battlefields that I played up until now have all been ones with a progression system where if you want a plane upgrade, you got to play with the plane and get kills with it in order to get that upgrade. So those guys didn't allow me to do anything because they would constantly be jumping in them and taking off. Like, it got to the point where, like, I'd put C4 on the planes, and if the teammate thought about getting in it before me, I'd blow it. I would be that guy to prevent him from being that guy. It was just sad times.
We would one of the strategies we would do when we would ladder match, though, we'd go into the enemy base, steal their planes, and then park them. We would take, like, you'd have one or two guys that would sneak over there. Because the map would only allow a certain number of planes to spawn. Same thing with the tanks and stuff like that. So you could take the plane and park it on the edge, like somewhere on the map, the edge of the map, and get out. And as long as it wasn't damaged, it would be okay. It would take about...
And it would count as their thing, so they wouldn't be able to spawn one.
I mean, after about 10 minutes, the game would start to... The plane would start to smoke, and after 15 minutes, it would blow up on its own.
I don't think it does that now.
Yeah, but it was kind of fun because you could do that.
Well, you're going...
Stuff.
Nowadays, if you get in a vehicle, you're dead within 5 minutes, usually. Unless you got a team of repairs, you're dead. Like,
no way.
It's crazy. I mean, it's funny the shit I do with my friends when I'm playing Battlefield because like I have a video clip somewhere saved on my PS4, or maybe my friend has it. But literally, he had a massive heavy tank with like a top gun that just like shoots I think it's like, I don't think it's the type of shell that takes out tanks, but I think it's like a heavy shell that's meant for multiple infantry targets. So he's just like mowing down these people, and every time a tank would come up to fight him, it would like hit him and it would take off like 30% of his tank's health. But we had a squad of like 3 of us with wrenches, and we're nonstop repairing his tank while this tank's shooting at him. So he'd get hit, and within like 2 seconds he's already healed to full. And the other tank's like, what the hell, why is this guy not dying? But we were literally, like, we'd do it, and then if the tank killed one of us, we'd spawn on another one of us. So we'd constantly be spawning on each other and repairing them.
Well, you had to do that, too. Some of the games, like Iwo Jima and some of the battles where you had an aircraft carrier, the first thing the enemy used to do would try to sink your aircraft carrier. So you'd sit there with your repair. You'd have 3 or 4 engineers just constantly wrenching away, trying to repair the ship. Because if it went down, like, you're screwed. Because like you'd have like about 20 guys just floating in the water with nowhere to go, and they would either have to suicide or they'd try to swim for shore.
Ridiculous.
Those games were a lot of fun. At that point in time, Battlefield 1942 was the very first really big first-person shooter I'd played. Because I'd been playing EverQuest since 1999, 2000, right around there, and I played a lot of EverQuest, And that game was cool because you could play on servers with, like a couple thousand people at a time, but you weren't all in the same area. They were different zones.
All over,
some people would be in the state of unrest, other people would be questing here, going to Freeport, going to Quaynos, whatever. You could spend like a month in Butcher Block Mountains just trying to level your guy up. But with Battlefield 1942, though, you were all in one map. There was nowhere else to go. There was no sneaking. Yeah, exactly. And it was a lot of fun. That game led to a lot of good friendships. I mean, a lot of people, I think, bonded over the insanity of it all. And when you're playing with somebody, you're playing a game with somebody, whether it's online or tabletop or whatever, when you're gaming with somebody for like 3 or 4 hours a day, over the course of a year or two, you're going to become friends. You know, you exchange emails, and you know, one of the guys actually wound up coming to my wedding. You know, and I still talk to him to this day.
It's crazy.
You know, my buddy Dan Yee, he's an architect, lives in New York.
I mean, like I just, in the past,
shout-outs.
What is it, 3-4 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was 2014 when I met him. But I met like a full. It was, I'd say a clan, but a clan, like I feel like nowadays means like you're dedicated to a game as a group and you're always playing it. But I met a group of people and they had this gaming community of their own, and it was only like 15 of them. And like I met them in this game, Destiny, in the social space. Literally all it was that introduced me to them was I did a dancing emote in this social space. And then another guy had a character that looked similar to mine, and he had the same emote, so he comes up and does it. And now we're both dancing, and then he invites me to a party. Now I got friends in Chicago, I got friends in Kentucky, I got a friend in one friend in Texas, a friend in Louisiana, friends in, all over. And it's like all because of, a literally an emote. An emote is the reason I have friends all over the place. I mean, people like to shoot down games for the fact that, like, oh, well, they take away the social aspects of life. But, I mean, like, every time I go to Chicago, I got people to hang out with now. Like, if I were to go to Chicago before, I would have had to bring people with me if I were to be cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But now you got friends.
Now I got friends. And it's like, I just seen one of the guys from Texas. He's known the group for 8 years. And he just for the first time this past week went up to Chicago to meet, the people he's been friends with for almost a decade. And like they just had a blast. So it's like, it's crazy what gaming does for socialization. It changes it. It changes the definition of socialization. So
yeah, the relationships, dude, though, that you make in these games are kind of funny, and there's real life stuff that happens after a while. Like we had an issue in the 9th Infantry where one of the longtime leaders of the group was embezzling money. Like we all would donate $5 a month toward the group, which shouldn't seem like it's not a lot of money. It doesn't seem, but sometimes
after a few months with so many members.
Well, we had like 100 members almost at one point. Yeah, and we had like 2 or 3 games. We had America's Army server. We had a Battlefield 1942 server. We had a server for this, server for that, and then you also had to pay for the TeamSpeak, voice the server that we had, and you couldn't go cheap. I mean, to rent those servers, it was like expensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had to have back then. The average transmission rate was probably like a good, like top of the line one was 5 megabytes a second. That was huge.
Right.
I mean, a lot of guys still played on 56K. And he had used that money to buy stuff for his wife. And so one of the servers went down. We couldn't figure out why. And he's like, well, the money's not in there. I used it for blah, blah, blah. And so we had to go in as a group and literally oust that guy. We had to go, okay, you need to disconnect yourself from the banking. You're not allowed. We're not sending you money anymore. We changed the servers over to somebody else's name, and we kicked him out of the group. And that legitimately was a big to-do, because some of the people in the group were like only 14, 15, but some of them were 60, 70 years old. We had guys that, were all retired, guys, and they would not tolerate that crap. You could probably get away with it if it was a bunch of kids, but you can't do that sort of thing with adults.
Man, well,
yeah, exactly.
Just gotta do it, I guess. Oh,
so and then there is that weird social dynamic that you have to deal with when you have big groups of people together. There's always going to be a few people that mess around. And, I don't know. We have to talk about that another time. I kind of like that. The social aspects of online gaming is kind of fun. We'll have to cover that at some point. But I hope you all liked our rare podcast where we did not go off on tangents. We kept the one topic for the most part.
Line. I mean,
usually we kind of flop all over the place. So feel free to send us a tweet at DFAM Podcast. It's at DFAM Podcast on Twitter, or send us an email to don'tfeedaftermidnight@protonmail.com. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.